My name is Laura. I am 36 years old, and for a long time, I believed I was one of the luckiest women I knew. The reason had a name, Daniel. Daniel was 38, calm, gentle, and quietly confident. He wasn't the kind of man who tried to impress people, yet everyone seemed impressed by him anyway. Friends trusted him. Neighbors respected him. Even strangers felt comfortable around him. More than once, I heard people say, "You're so lucky. He's perfect." And I believed them. Daniel listened when I spoke. Really listened. He never raised his voice, even during difficult conversations. When I was tired, he noticed. When I doubted myself, he reminded me of who I was. With him, I felt safe, not in a dramatic way, but in a steady, everyday way that made life feel easier. Our life together was simple. Morning walks. Quiet dinners. Long talks that didn't need big words. I trusted him completely. I never felt the need to check his phone, question his stories, or doubt his intentions. There was only one small thing I noticed, something so easy to ignore that I never gave it real importance. Daniel never talked about his past. Not his childhood. Not old friends. Not where he came from before the life we shared. If I asked gently, he smiled and said, "It doesn't matter anymore." And because everything else felt so right, I accepted that answer without question. After all, why would I doubt a man everyone trusted? I didn't know then that silence can be just as powerful as words. And that one day, the truth about Daniel would change the way I understood everything, including love itself. At first, the strange details were so small that I almost felt foolish noticing them. They didn't feel like secrets. They felt like tiny pauses, moments where something didn't quite fit. Daniel avoided certain places without explanation. When I suggested visiting a cafe near the old train station, he hesitated for a second too long. "Let's go somewhere else," he said lightly. "It's too crowded there." But I had been there many times. It was never crowded. Once, while introducing himself to a new neighbor, I noticed something else. "Daniel," he said, pronouncing his name softly. A moment later, when speaking to someone else, he pronounced it slightly differently, sharper, shorter. When I asked about it later, he smiled and said, "People say it in different ways." I nodded, but something stayed with me. Another time, we were watching the evening news when a short story came on about a violent incident from many years ago. It was far away, unrelated to us, but Daniel's reaction startled me. He stiffened. His jaw tightened. He changed the channel without a word. "Did that bother you?" I asked gently. He looked away. "Just bad memories," he said. Then there was the moment at the cafe. A man behind the counter stared at Daniel for a long second, his expression confused, almost shocked. "Do I know you?" he asked. Daniel didn't miss a beat. "I don't think so," he replied calmly, turning away. The moment passed, but my unease did not. None of these things were proof of anything. No lies. No accusations. Just small cracks in a picture that had always felt perfect. And slowly, without meaning to, I began to wonder. How much did I really know about the man everyone trusted? The discovery happened by accident, on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Daniel was out running errands, and I decided to clean the storage cupboard in our bedroom. It was something I had been avoiding for weeks, old boxes, forgotten papers, things we never needed but never threw away. At the back of the cupboard, behind winter coats, I found a small metal box. It was locked, but not tightly. When I lifted it, the lid shifted slightly, as if it had been opened many times before. I hesitated. I had never searched Daniel's things. Not once. But something about that box made my heart beat faster. I told myself I was only putting it back properly. Inside were a few documents, neatly folded. Old. Worn at the edges. Then I saw it. An identification card. The photo was Daniel. Younger, thinner, but unmistakably him. The name, however, was not. It was a name I had never heard before. I stared at it, waiting for my mind to correct the mistake. Maybe it was a brother. A mistake. Someone who just looked like him. But the birthdate matched. The signature looked like his. Everything fit, except the name. My hands began to shake. I checked the rest of the box. There was an envelope with the same unfamiliar name written on it, sealed and yellowed with age. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Just holding it felt like crossing a line I might never return from. I sat on the bed, the room suddenly feeling too small. Questions rushed in faster than I could stop them. Who was this person? Why had Daniel never mentioned another name? And most frightening of all, what else had he never told me? For the first time since I had known him, the man I loved felt like a stranger. And I realized something had shifted forever. I couldn't unknow what I had just seen. I didn't confront Daniel right away. I needed time to breathe, to calm the storm inside me. That evening, we ate dinner together like always. He talked about his day. I nodded, answered when needed, and watched him carefully, wondering how a person could seem so familiar and so unknown at the same time. After dinner, I asked him to sit with me. "There's something I need to talk about," I said, keeping my voice steady. He looked at me, instantly serious. "Okay." I went to the bedroom and returned with the metal box. I placed it on the table between us. My heart was pounding, but my hands were calm. "I found this today," I said. "I wasn't looking for anything. But I opened it." Daniel's face changed. Not with anger. Not with surprise. With recognition. He stared at the box for a long moment, then slowly sat down. He didn't ask what I had seen. He didn't try to explain. He didn't reach for it. "I saw the ID," I continued softly. "The name isn't yours. At least, not the one I know." Silence filled the room. Daniel looked at the floor, his hands resting on his knees. He didn't deny it. He didn't say I was mistaken. His silence felt heavier than any lie could have been. Finally, he spoke, but not to explain. "I always knew this moment would come," he said quietly. "I just hoped it wouldn't hurt you this much." I waited. My chest felt tight. He took a slow breath and looked up at me, his eyes full of something I had never seen before, fear. "You deserve the truth," he said. Then he looked away again. "But it's not easy." And in that pause, in that unfinished sentence, I understood that whatever he was about to tell me would change more than just his past. It would change us. Daniel stayed silent for a long time after that. The room felt heavy, as if the air itself was waiting. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and careful, like someone opening an old wound. "That name you saw," he said, "was mine once. A long time ago." My heart tightened, but I didn't interrupt him. "I didn't change it to hide from the law," he continued. I didn't hurt anyone. I wasn't running from a crime. He paused, swallowing hard. I was running from a life that was slowly destroying me. He told me about his childhood, something he had never spoken about before. A home filled with anger instead of safety. A father whose violence was unpredictable. A mother who learned to stay silent to survive. Daniel grew up learning how to disappear inside himself, how to stay quiet, how to endure. When I finally left, he said, I was already broken. Angry. Lost. I didn't like the person I was becoming. I was scared of who I might turn into if I stayed. So he left everything behind. The town. The name. The past that followed him like a shadow. He worked small jobs, lived quietly, and slowly rebuilt himself, piece by piece. I chose a different name, he said softly. But more than that, I chose a different life. I learned how to be calm, how to listen, how to be the man I never had growing up. He looked at me then, his eyes steady but full of fear. I never lied about who I am now, Laura, he said. I only hid who I used to be. Because I was ashamed, and because I was afraid that if you knew, you'd only see the past. The truth sat between us, heavy, painful, and human. Daniel wasn't hiding a lie. He was hiding a survival story. I didn't speak right away. I needed time to understand what I was feeling, because it wasn't simple anger or relief. It was something tangled, pain mixed with compassion, fear mixed with love. Was any of it real? I finally asked. My voice was quiet, but the question was heavy. Our life, our love, was that real? Or was it built on something missing? Daniel flinched as if the words had struck him. Everything we have is real, he said quickly. Every feeling. Every moment. I swear that part of my life, the part with you, was never a lie. But you didn't trust me with the whole truth, I said. And I don't know how to hold that. He nodded slowly. I know. And I don't blame you. His voice trembled. I was terrified that if you knew where I came from, you'd look at me and only see damage. I was more afraid of losing you than of living with the secret. That was when I truly saw him, not as the man with a hidden past, but as someone who had fought hard to become gentle instead of broken. I didn't hide because I didn't love you, he continued. I hid because loving you mattered too much. I looked at him for a long moment. Love without truth can feel fragile, but truth without understanding can be cruel. I realized that trust isn't only about knowing everything, it's about believing in who someone chooses to be. I need time, I said honestly. But I'm still here. His shoulders relaxed slightly, as if he had been holding his breath for years. That night, we didn't solve everything. But we chose something important. We chose not to walk away. In the days that followed, I thought often about the word truth. I had always believed it was something clear and complete, either present or absent, honest or dishonest. But loving Daniel taught me that truth can be layered. Complicated. Sometimes painful before it is freeing. I watched him in small moments. The way he spoke gently to strangers. The way he listened without interrupting. The way he stepped back instead of raising his voice when tension appeared. None of that was an act. None of it came from a hidden name or a past life. It came from choice, daily, deliberate choice. Daniel didn't ask me to forget his past. He didn't try to erase it again. He simply stood beside me, patient, ready to answer questions whenever I was ready to ask them. That mattered more than any document or explanation. I realized something important then. People are not only shaped by what happened to them. They are shaped by what they decide to do after. Daniel could have carried his past like a weapon. He could have become the anger he grew up with. Instead, he chose kindness. He chose calm. He chose to build a life that looked nothing like the one he escaped. And I chose to see him clearly, not as a man defined by where he came from, but as the man who stood in front of me now, honest, imperfect, and brave enough to finally tell the truth. Love doesn't mean pretending the past doesn't exist. It means believing in the effort it took to rise above it. Because the truth about someone is not always where they started, but who they choose to become. If you discovered someone you loved had a hidden past, would you judge them by who they were, or who they became? Share your thoughts below.